Do you learn a lot from watching? Like, what percentage of work that you do on a single player is done from watching film over and over versus watching it live in person or watching the game live on TV? So I know that's probably a weird question, but
Oh, I love it. That's my
it,
favorite question you've asked tonight.
yeah. So like,
I don't
what?
watch any live tape. I refuse to watch live tape because I end up wanting to sit there and rewind and rewind and rewind like I'm watching. I'll
So
be
you don't
honest.
watch the live games?
If it's a really big game, like I'll be honest with you, like a playoff game, like an
Yeah.
Alabama versus a Clemson or something like that. I'll
Oh,
get,
how'd you get Alabama and Clemson? That's a random choice. I'm joking, bro.
I'll
It's
be
a
honest with
really
you.
bad choice.
I'll get me some wings and I'll drink a beer and I'll just enjoy it as a fan.
Just hang out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just hang out. But that's a once a year type thing. I really
Wow.
don't watch games live like that just because I don't want to have bias going in, right? So like that's the whole thing with my process. I want to make sure if I watch Trevor Lawrence for 3 years kill college football and I go in to watch him, I'm gonna have 100 plays of Trevor Lawrence throwing the deep ball and just making it look easy on TV going into my evaluation. So when I sit down to watch a guy, I want to make sure it's a clean palette, right? Like there's nothing coming in that is pulling me either way. So it's certainly, I think a lot of people think that's a weird thing. I've had people ask me about it and say it's a weird thing to just not watch much live ball. But I love just like rewinding constantly and making sure I'm getting every little bit out of it. I can't watch a game without wanting to take notes and write things down. So maybe that's an outlier opinion, but that's just where I come
Hey,
from on that.
Rob, trivia question. Who told us the exact same thing on the podcast?
Wow, I'm
Matt
blanking already.
Matt
Oh,
Waldman.
Waldman,
Isn't
Matt
it?
Waldman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Matt
yeah.
Waldman. He told us the exact same thing. He told us the exact same thing. So have you talked to Matt before?
I've talked to Matt here and there. I haven't had, extended conversations
He's
with him, but
awesome.
I'm a huge fan of his work.
Oh,
He's
he's
really
so
a
good.
pioneer and he's in many ways what I aspire to be with my analysis because he's the ultimate definition of a process guy, right? Like he just does it his way and he's got the best process that he can down over years and years of doing it. So yeah, I take a lot of notes from Waldman. I've learned a lot of things over the years from Waldman. So definitely a guy that I inspire to hopefully be like one day in terms of what I provide analysis wise.
And I would trade voices with him in a heartbeat.
And
Oh yeah, he's a
also a
smooth
beard
talker.
guy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the listeners out there, I got mocked for my baby beard on this show. They could call me baby beard before the show, guys. See, these guys are bringing the real deal with the beards here. But so you don't watch a lot of live. That's a super interesting note. How much NFL do you watch? How much follow through do you watch on? Do you watch that? See how you did on those evals. Do you go back a year later? How about a year later? You go back on the 2019 evals and grade yourself on that, or like what you could do better. Do you learn a lot from maybe something you like? I missed that on this guy. Like I'm going to be sure to watch out for that next year. Like how do you do self evaluation?
Yeah, it's tough and it's something I want to focus more on. One of the biggest things is prior to this past, I would say 3 months, I was in school. So like I didn't have the time to really go back and go and dig and do self-evaluations in the level that I wanted to. I've gotten more into writing pro reports. It's something I'm starting to kind of get into and something that I really want to focus on because I think it gives you a lot better context to, okay, what did I miss on? What did I hit on? How was he used? How did he transform his body? Some guy's going to go from 220 in college to being 240 in the NFL. And you've got to figure out, okay, how did he make this transition? What's different about his game? So there's a lot of things you can take out that way. It's something that I need to invest more time into personally, and something I'm excited to invest more time into. I don't watch NFL live ball really at all. Like I'm a Rams fan, and I'll be honest with you, when they were in the Super Bowl, I was like, I'll turn it on and watch it, but I'll mess around and
We got you covered. We got you covered, Mark.
Yeah, you can double down on the Rams watching for me because I usually like I turn on Game Pass and I'll watch some Game Pass just to I'll write reports on guys, pro reports, but I never even to NFL stuff. I don't watch broadcast anymore unless it's going back and watching cut-ups because, like I said, I just really struggled to watch the game in a casual way. Like I know Waldman obviously had a great article on that. I think it's called Losing Your Football Innocence. He shares it every few weeks on Twitter. And it's one of my favorite articles of all time because it really it's that's what it is. I've gotten to the point where if I'm going to watch football, I got my laptop up. I'm taking notes. I'm trying to learn new stuff with every single thing, every single rep. I can take something out of it and move it forward, right? Versus if I'm just watching it on TV and I get one run through of it and I just see, oh, well, he completed the pass and that's it. I just watched the guy throw a quick pass and the play's over and I didn't learn anything. And so it just changed my way of approaching football as a whole. And it's made me, in my opinion, a lot happier watching football, to be honest. I feel like I get a lot more out of the game that way.
Why is college all 22 tape? Why do you need to know somebody in the mafia to get a copy of college all 22 tape? Why is it the most difficult thing in the world to acquire? I'm
glad I know some people in the mafia. I'll say that. But this is a very great question. One that some people treat it like a status symbol, right? Like some people, like they get hung up on, oh, I don't have all 22. I can't watch this and that. It's like, well, man, for 4 years when I was doing What's on Draft, I didn't have that. I just watched broadcast and just made do. You just kind of got to make the most of what you have. I will say this. I think that they are missing a grand opportunity in terms of the audience that is out there that they could provide with this service. I think being so secretive about it and being, oh, don't share it is really foolish, because ultimately it's just going to help the game, right? It's going to get more people interested. It's more accessible. People are going to want to take this and, hey, you can pay $60 or it's probably not going to be 60. Let's be realistic. It's probably about like 150 plus, but you pay this and then you can have it's like NFL Game Pass, right? You can have all this tape on all these different teams, and it would cause a boom for the NFL draft community. It would cause a boom for college analysis, right? Like there'd be so much more out there content wise. So I think they're missing a grand opportunity. I guess it's just some fear of, we want to hoard it because we can make money off the teams and the NFL by keeping it all kind of stashed. But that's a can of worms, man. I take it like this, right? So I've made cut-ups. I've done the broadcast tape watching for a long time in terms of stuff you can find on YouTube. You just Google a player's name, Caleb Huntley versus whoever for Ball State. So like you can find stuff out there. You can make it work. If you're really invested in it, you can pull it off. But I certainly wish it was accessible to everyone.
Definitely. Rob, you got any questions?
No, I think, one of my final questions that I want to ask Mark is one thing that we talk about, just being in the scouting community and just being media as well. Pro comp comparisons. Do you like them? Do you don't like them? Like, what is your take in regards to pro comp comparisons?
This is a tough one because for years I did a version called low, medium, high, which was just give me 3 guys that they're stylistically similar. They got very similar like measurables. They meet a lot of the same things, right? They've got similar traits. They're as close as you can get as a player can get to another player, right? And so you give me a low, which is, okay, this is the floor of the guy. So, the lower on this guy might be a terrible player who's a practice squad guy, but he had similar style and similar athletic background, all that sort of stuff. Then you got the medium, which is like, okay, this is kind of what I expect him to be. And the high, which is like, okay, we'd be lucky if he gets here, right? So like a Lamar Jackson, well, maybe he could get to like a Mike Vick, which he has clearly done that. But like, that's the kind of grouping that I used. It's tough though, because you have to really dig to find good comps from like, you got to look up what's this guy's like arm length, what's his height, weight, speed. Does he play the similar way? Like there are some guys who are 6'6" and 260, and they're built a way different way than another guy who's 6'6", 260. So it's incredibly tough to find good comparisons. Personally, I've gone more in the way of not trying to use them unless it's one that really pops out. If one really clicks in my mind, I'll use it and I'll bring it up. But some people get hung up on, oh, well, is this the way you're determining the guy's success? Oh, you compared him to Aaron Rodgers. Are you saying he's going to be Aaron Rodgers? No, they're just similar in a lot of ways. So I think it's something that people overthink in a lot of ways. But it's certainly something that draws in the clicks. It's like the mock drafts. It's like the rankings and all that. It gets people's attention, but I think there's a lot of context that has to go into it to find a good player comparison, and you don't want to throw them around very freely.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube, and we'll love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter, at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.